All right, everyone. So here we go. I'm going to scroll back up because I had messed up and started recording without much space on my computer. So, quiet, Bubba. All right. So we are going to go over Project Time, Typhoon Investigation Intelligence Report. Here we go. Scrolling. Hold on. Intelligence Report, October 2nd, 2020. Let's see. There's a lot on here, so I'm going to start. Okay. Summary. Joe Biden's compromising partnership with the Communist Party of China runs via Yang Jiechi, Jiechi, CPC's Central Foreign Affairs Commission. Yang met frequently with Biden during his tenure at the Chinese Embassy in Washington. Hunter Biden's 2013 Bohai Harvest Rosemont Investment Partnership was set up by Ministry of Foreign Affairs institutions designed to garner influence with foreign leaders during Yang's tenure as foreign minister. Hunter has a direct line to the Politburo, Politburo, according to Source A senior finance professional in China. Michael Lin brokered the BHR partnership and partners with MOFA Foreign Influence Organizations. Lin is a POI for his person of interest for his work on behalf of China, as confirmed by Source B and Source C at two separate national intelligence agencies. BHR is a state-managed operation. Leading shareholder in BHR is a Bank of China, and BHR partners are SOEs that funnel revenue assets to BHR. Hunter continues to hold 10% in BHR. He visited China in 2010 and met with major Chinese government financial companies that would later back BHR. Hunter's BHR stake, purchased for $400,000, is now likely to be worth approximately $50 million, fees and capital appreciation based on BHR's $6.5 billion AUM. Hunter also did business with China's tycoons linked with the Chinese military and against the interests of U.S. national security. Biden's foreign policy stance towards China, formerly hawkish, was since turned positive despite China's country's rising geopolitical assertiveness. The nexus of Chinese money and influence. So there's a couple of flowcharts that I will copy and post to most likely my Patreon page, and you can sign up there and go check it out for yourself. But it's a nice little chart that shows you who pays who and who knows who, whatever. Okay. Hold on, I'm going to keep scrolling. Okay. Hunter received Chinese state money. There is no apparent reason for Hunter's participation in the BHR partnership other than political payoff and influence. Virtually all financial investors or partners are state policy entities, state-owned entities, or only nominally private. The investments flow primarily to China state-backed projects or firms. The financial terms where we have been able to locate specific deal terms, engage in non-normal business practices designed to funnel fees and assets to benefit a specific party. There is a clear intent by Chinese state officials acting to influence U.S. individuals, either in official positions or with close relationships to them. This facilitated use of Chinese state offices and officials to meet Hunter and arrange for public money via the Social Security, local state-owned enterprises, and Policy Bank to fund the investment partnership. Though the investment partnership was not official until late 2013, the key relationships and visits with companies and individuals who would become investors and partners began significantly earlier. China invests large amount of financial and political capital in influencing foreign individuals and institutions. Given the personal connection with senior individuals within the Chinese government, there is absolutely no chance this investment partnership was undertaken as a normal market transaction, or that political influence by Chinese was ignored. Notably, key individuals have strong links to Chinese influence organizations. Importantly, throughout the Obama administration, Biden maintained a positive view of China. At an official dinner, Biden said about Chairman Xi, quote, "Mr. President, the many hours we've spent together, we have had countless private discussions that will go beyond the typical talking points. And I came away and I told the president this after our multiple meetings, that I came away impressed with the president's candor, determination, and his capacity. Both sides accept that we each gain more from working together than our interest, and our interest, where our interests align, than working alone by addressing the differences candidly," end quote. Biden has denied any knowledge of his son's business activities in China or that it influenced any policy. Given the numerous official trips, Secret Service protection received by Hunter for unofficial trips, quasi-official receptions in Beijing, and press coverage, it strains all credibility to accept these denials as reliable. At very least, it is ethically problematic for the children of senior administration personnel to be engaging in financial transactions with foreign governments, a transaction that would be disallowed for the parent. Even if a specific policy was not altered at the request of China, it clearly compromises the public official. Excuse my kids in the background. 2010, Hunter courts Chinese state money. On April 12th and 13th, Biden met with the Chinese President Hu Jintao in Washington as part of a nuclear security summit. Just a few days prior, between April 7th and 9th, Hunter took a business trip to Beijing where he joined Thornton's Lin and Bolger for several meetings with some of China's most powerful state financial institutions. The English news item is no longer accessible on Thornton's website, but the Chinese version remains. According to Thornton's news item, Hunter was introduced as the chairman of Rosemont Seneca and the second son of the U.S. vice president, and the purpose of his visit was to deepen mutual understanding and explore the possibility of commercial cooperation. The phrasing commercial cooperation speaks to personal interest, and the meetings arranged on this trip with institutions that would become partners adds to this implication. Hunter visited multiple parties in one day, with each meeting appearing to last more than 1 hour or two. It is unclear what meaningful discussions could have taken place during the short space of time, other than for Thornton to deliver Hunter to their Chinese counterparties and flaunt their U.S. political connections. Regardless of Hunter's intentions, his hosts were treated this visit as a quasi-state level. In chronological order, Hunter met with the following Chinese financial institutions: National Council for Social Security Funds, Hill House Capital, China United States Exchange Foundation, China Investment Corporation, China Life Insurance Group Company, Postal Savings Bank of China, and Founder Group. There's a nice little picture that I'm gonna try to save so I can post that as well. All right, we'll see. Now, 2011. From April 18th to April 20th, Hunter visited leading Taiwan banks and financial institutions, along with Thornton Chairman Bolger and CEO Lin. Hunter was introduced this time as a senior consultant of Rosemont Realty. In 2010, Rosemont Realty acquired BGK, which owned 135 commercial buildings in 22 states. Burrell was appointed CEO and Hunter was appointed to the board of advisors. Rosemont's Realty website is no longer accessible, but archived records show Hunter was listed as an advisor in 2011. FOIA records show that after departing Taiwan, Hunter visited China, staying there until April 22nd. There are no media reports on the purpose of his visit. 2012, Hunter's first China deal, Wanxiang, Wanxiang. On February 17, 2012, Biden met with Xi and Vice President, but soon to be China President, in California. By Biden's count, he met with Xi for a rough total of 25 hours in 2011 and 2012. One topic of discussion was access for U.S. film companies in the China market. On February 19th, Hunter Seneca Gold advisors advised Great Point, a U.S. energy technology startup, in receiving an equity investment of United States dollars $420 million and project funding of United States dollars $1.25 billion from Wanxiang Group. The largest foreign venture capital investment into the U.S. that year. The two parties agreed to jointly develop a coal to natural gas facility in Xinjiang, an autonomous territory in northwest China. The signing ceremony was attended by senior U.S. and Chinese government officials such as Xi. It belies any credibility for Biden to claim no knowledge of his son's business activities with China with these types of ceremonies. These types of political ceremonies also raise valid questions about policy influence from Hunter's business activities. Wanxiang founder Lu Guanqiu, Guanqiu, had met with Obama in January 2011 and employed Obama's ally, former Chicago Mayor Richard Daley. Hunter had previously worked for Richard's brother, Secretary of Commerce William Daley, as Executive Director of E-Commerce Policy Coordination. William Daley was Obama's former Chief of Staff from 2011 to 2012. Wanxiang is a long-established and politically well-connected industrial conglomerate based in Hangzhou, where Lu knew Xi from Xi's days as Zhejiang CPC secretary in the early 2000s and Xi's father in the 1980s. Following the millions given to Massachusetts-based Great Point, Wanxiang appears to have benefited from U.S. policy decisions where Biden was involved. In 2013, Wanxiang acquired the bankrupt assets of A123 Systems, Inc., A123, and in 2014 won a bankruptcy auction for the assets of Fisker Automotive, Fisker, the defunct manufacturer of the Karma plug-in hybrid sports car. Both Fisker and A123 were funded in part with U.S. government loans to build cars in Delaware, Biden's home state, which meant Wanxiang obtained technology developed with U.S. taxpayer money. An investigative report said Biden's administration pushed for the loans in 2009. Bankruptcy filings show Hunter was also listed as a Fisker creditor, meaning he either had to put down a deposit for a car or was an early investor. Wanxiang also picked up a GM plant from the Fisker purchase and sensitive technology from the A123 acquisition. That could be put to use by the Chinese military. Wanxiang is active in China's foreign influence operations, including paying for Delaware students to study Mandarin in China. Wanxiang supports the Chinese government's investments in North Korea. where it owns a major copper mine. Wanjing, his imports also support the North Korean regime. And despite being one of the largest imposters of North Korean minerals, it has so far managed to evade U.S. sanctions, which have ensnared its smaller competitors during Obama's presidency. 2012 to 2013, Hunter's second China deal, BHR. At some point during 2012, according to U.S. and Chinese media reports, the catalyst for Hunter's first deal in China was when the Bohai Capital CEO, Jonathan Li Jingjing, visited New York at an unspecified time in 2012 and met with Archer to discuss finding a suitable investment partner. Quote, "Don't you think that I'm the most suitable business partner for you," unquote, Archer told Lee as they smoked cigars in a Manhattan bar, according to an account in the 21st Century Business Herald, a Communist Party owner newspaper. Quote, "Companies globally all like to have powerful people on the board, as these connections help raise capital, smooth joint ventures, and add outside insight," unquote, said Andrew Collier, managing director of Orient Capital Research, a Hong Kong-based consulting firm. Archer was very convincing, the story said, in part because Archer's company has a deep network of contacts in U.S. political circles. R. Hunter Biden, the son of U.S. Vice President Biden, is one of the company's executives. End quote. And then another quote. "China is particularly connection heavy because government relations often spell the difference between success and failure, both in raising money and in getting contracts," he said. "It's not clear that Hunter Biden did anything more than put his name on the door of the particular company." End quote. Washington Post, October 13th, 2019. Our research shows that Hunter did more than, quote unquote, put his name on the door, and Lee's 2012 visit to New York was unlikely the genesis for a future investment partnership with Hunter et al. Hunter had already met with Bohai Capital's key stakeholders in several meetings in 2010. He may have met with connected persons during his 2011 trip to China. By 2012, Hunter, Bolger, and Archer were already ensconced with the Chinese government and its key financial institutions. Furthermore, the Chinese foreign minister at the time, Yang, knew Biden from his time in Washington, and Lin maintaining clients under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as Thornton clients. On June 11th, Thornton's Lin met with senior executives from Bohai Capital, according to Thornton's website. While Lee is not mentioned by name, it is likely he was either present or aware of the meeting. The future BHR shareholders reportedly signed an agreement in 2013. A photo posted on Lin's LinkedIn profile shows Biden, back row, third from left, alongside Lin and Bolger. Media reports do not specify the date of signature, but FOIA records show that Hunter visited Shanghai on June 13th through the 14th, and then stayed in Beijing until June 15th. Hunter was accompanied by Bolger, Lin, and Archer. There's the lovely picture. Okay. 2013, Biden and Hunter visit China and meet BHR CEO Lee. On December 4th, Hunter accompanies Biden on his official trip to China. Hunter told The New Yorker that he met Lee during the December 2013 trip, but described it as a social encounter. "How do I go to Beijing, halfway around the world, and not see them, Lee, for a cup of coffee?" he said. Hunter arranged a quick meeting in the lobby of the American delegation's hotel in Beijing between Biden and Lee and the BHR CEO. This was followed by a social meeting between Hunter and Lee, according to reports by The New Yorker. The trip by Hunter coincided with the official trip by the Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych. Many business deals promoting trade and investment between China and Ukraine were signed during this trip. Some deals between Chinese and Ukrainian firms have ties to firms Hunter is known to be involved with, such as Bohai Commodity Exchange, owned by the same local governments that own a part in Bohai Industrial Investment. On 16th December 2013, a week after the Biden and Hunter visit to Beijing, BHR was incorporated in Shanghai, with its registered address in the Shanghai Free Trade Zone, according to State Market Regulatory Administration (SMRA) records. Hunter's profile no longer appears on the BHR website. One archived version lists him as a director on November 16, 2015. Biden is referred in the profile as a management partner of Rosemont Seneca Partners and a consultant at Boyes, B-O-I-E-S, Schiller, S-C-H-I-L-L-E-R, Flexner, LPP, known as Boyes Schiller. According to a statement by Biden's lawyer, George Mesars, M-E-S-I-R-E-S, on October 13, 2019, Biden was of counsel with Boyes Schiller and advising Ukraine-linked Burisma Holdings Limited on its corporate reform initiatives. He also listed on Chinese PE websites where he is referred to by the Chinese name Hengte Beiding. So it's HENGTE BAIDENG. All right, SMRA records show Hunter purchased 10% of BHR on October 23, 2017 via his investment vehicle Scanetels, SKANEATELES, LLC, and was director until April 20th, 2020. Previously, he was invested via other holding companies. BHR's current shareholders are Bohai Capital, 30%, Shanghai Ample Harvest Financial Services Group Co. Limited, 30%, Angju Investment, 10%, Thornton, 10%, Ulysses Diversified Incorporated, 10%, Scanetels, it's that SKANEATELES, LLC, for 10%. According to Chinese corporate records, the original owner of the U.S. stake in BHR was Rosemont Seneca Thornton, LLC, with a 30% shareholding. This was split just under 2 years later into what is believed to be 20% and a 10% holding between Rosemont Seneca, Bohai LLC, and Thornton LLC. This was later changed again, splitting Rosemont Seneca Bohai into Scanlets and Ulysses. As Rosemont is the Heinz Kerry vehicle that Seneca is the Biden vehicle, it is believed that the final split allowed Heinz to exit the partnership, divesting to Archer. In summary, the Chinese government-funded business that co-owned, along with the son of a sitting U.S. Vice President and Secretary of State, who was with high probability directly or indirectly invested in the holding company. On May 7th through 8th, 2014, Hunter visited China for the 5th time for undisclosed reasons according to FOIA records. Bohai Industrial Investment. The two Chinese partners, Bohai Industrial Investment, Bohai, and Harvest Fund Management, Harvest, are key to understanding the importance of this deal. Bohai is technically a state-owned enterprise. I need to yell at my kids. Hold on. Again. Okay. A specific type of corporate registration, and while Harvest is not an SOE, its state-linked roots are deep. Understanding these two companies helps us contextualize. Why is it not working? There you go. Okay. Contextualize. Bohai is owned by a combination of national-level SOEs and local governments in China. In China, there are thousands of local SOEs throughout each city, county, and province, but a relatively small number of national SOEs. The financial strength of Bohai comes primarily from its collection of national-level SOE financials, specifically Bank of China, China Postal Bank, China Development Bank, and National Social Security. This combination of financial institutions confers upon Bohai both political and financial strength. Together, these financial institutions manage nearly $8 trillion United States dollars in financial assets. Relative to China, this gives them financial assets equivalent to approximately 20% of the entire Chinese financial system. Bohai has an enormously deep pool of financial reserves it can easily tap. The financial importance extends 2 steps further. Much of the financing of BHR projects would be financed primarily by Bohai shareholders via other financial vehicles or products. China Development Bank and Bank of China specifically appear repeatedly in BHR deals funding their projects throughout China and around the world. Additionally, key personnel from Bohai and BHR came from these institutions, speaking to the overlap and relationship between these institutions. This collection of financial institutions in China also carries clear political implications. These are some of the most politically important SOEs and financial institutions in China. The Ministry of Finance has a majority direct or indirect stake in almost each case and are all centrally owned. Each has clear mandates from the central government in a range of areas such as BOC playing the dominant role and foreign exchange clearing and settlement, leading them more into international markets. China Postal serving rural customers, and China Development being one of the 3 banks' official policy banks. Not only is each individual financial institution potentially politically important, a fact not lost on officials and investors, but it also speaks to the specific attempt by official China to work with the pricelings of key U.S. public officials. While we do not have specific documentation proving this, based upon well-known Chinese business practice, it seems highly unlikely that this influence operation and business deal was not approved by a senior political level, given the nature of working with the sons of 2 highly placed American officials and the historical relationships of Chinese political figures with their fathers. There is one final channel the political influence appears. Due to the intensely political nature of the financial banking and positioning of Bohai, the deal flow and ultimate projects of BHR invest in are effectively Chinese state-backed projects. Internationally, BHR invests in projects with officially or nominally Chinese SOE firms. For example, a major international investment involved BHR partnership with AVIC Automotive to purchase Henniges Automotive, better known as the Aviation Industry Corporation of China, AVIC. AVIC is a vast, sprawling military industrial complex company with nearly 500,000 employees across all its different divisions, involved in everything from military aircraft to robotics. AVIC, in one form or another, has regularly appeared in the U.S. entity list over the years and alleged espionage activities against the United States military. AVIC is overseen by SASAC, the manager of all state-owned enterprises. Even Even when the partner or investment is not explicitly a state-owned enterprise, it is effectively an SOE. Harvest Fund Management is technically a private company, but receives significant backing from its major state-linked entities, which have received public bailouts. One of the major shareholders in Harvest is a financial firm named China Credit Trust, CCT. CCT is a financial, non-depository financial firm owned by a group composed of provincial and national level coal and mining companies. The national SOEs are major firms including the China National Coal Group, China People's Insurance, and China Minmetals, all directly under the powerful SASAC. Like the backing for Bohai, the backing for Harvest is very similarly state-owned and linked. The multi-layered links to the state extends to investment. Despite the publicly stated reason for the investment funds to focus on international ventures, the large majority of investment flows to domestic sources. Not only is a total fund investment primarily domestic, but it appears to flow primarily to public-private or policy-linked investment. Public-private investment in China consists of infrastructure, public works, and policy-driven investment linked to government interests. This may consist of everything from toll roads to convention centers and investment funds, similar to Bohai, that are designed to stimulate activity. The central government also publishes regular lists of strategic industries that are to receive preferential access to capital. Public-private investment in China has increased rapidly as local governments face restrictions on official public debt limits to skirt central government rules that limit debt growth, but still meet investment targets. Local governments create off-public balance sheet vehicles consisting of state-linked companies with loans from banks or trust firms that provide investment capital. The flow of capital to public, private, or strategic projects is notable in this case as it provides further evidence of the state link between BHR and its purpose. The supposed purpose of this BHR partnership documents was for Chinese capital to invest abroad, but records show most of invested domestically in state-backed projects. Consequently, there appears no viable business reason for a foreign investor due to the primarily state-backed nature of the investment, and it effectively guarantees the investment. The close links between the fund and the Chinese state at all levels raise valid and worrying concerns. The original partnership stems from an individual working closely with official Chinese state enterprises and government agencies, brought in major SOEs, invested in state policy projects both internationally and domestically, effectively guaranteeing a return for investors. At every level of the BHR partnership is linked to the Chinese state. Valuing the partnership. A key question surrounding the BHR partnership concerns the value of the partnership and the underlying financing provided to this partnership by Chinese state-linked financial firms. It should be noted at the outset that given the lack of documentation such as fee schedule and partnership agreement that will have significant impact on valuation and financial flows, we lack important details that would help us provide greater specificity and certainty about financial aspects of the BHR partnership. Where we lack detail cannot be directly obtained about BHR, we will use industry standard or provide various scenarios based upon potential missing details. The first major question about BHR financials concerns the size of the firm's business. Most news reports have placed the value of assets under management, AUM, at BHR at 1 to 1.5 billion United States dollars. This number is likely to be significantly lower than reality. If we take just two international transactions, Tank Fungurme, whatever that, Fungurume, mine in the DRC, and the Henniges, Henniges automotive purchase in total sum of approximately 1.6 billion United States dollars, leaving aside all other less public projects and various financing details, which remain unknown but pertinent. Put another way, if we consider only two simultaneous projects, the total AUM would exceed the previously public estimates of BHR. There is a more direct and likely more reliable estimate of 6.5 billion United States dollars for the current AUM of BHR. Thornton co-founder Lin, listing himself as a BHR co-founder, declares total assets under management, AUM, as 6.5 billion United States dollars on his personal LinkedIn page. It is difficult to verify this statement because many BHR projects do not provide public financials or announcements. However, given the less conspicuous nature of the statement and his ability to make such a statement, it should be taken as credible given its first-person testimony as to the state of the business. Okay. Importantly, this puts the true nature of AUM as more than 4 times higher than previous estimates. This has a major impact on the valuation, both in year-to-year cash flow terms and in terms of capital appreciation gains that would accrue to its partners. Private equity firms typically make money through 2 different channels in what is known in the industry as a 2/20 fee schedule. Private equity firms like BHR first receive annual management fee of 2% of committed or managed capital depending on the partnership agreement. If we assume that BHR receives annual revenue of 2% of $6.5 billion, then this would be the amount of $130 million US dollars annually in ongoing management fees. According to BHR, they report the number of employees between 11 to 50, while news reports report the number at 20. Taking the high number of employees at 50, this would place the annual fee revenue, excluding capital gains and similar revenue per employee, at approximately $2.6 million per employee. Taking the news report number of 20 employees, that would place revenue per worker at $6.5 million. However, for multiple reasons, most private equity firms make their big payouts from taking a percentage of capital appreciation gains. The standard fee is 20% of gains when the rate of return exceeds a specific hurdle rate. Let us take a very simple example to illustrate the potential payout for BHR. Let us assume that BHR wishes to liquidate current assets and finds buyers willing to pay $8 billion for its assets currently listed at $6.5 billion. Assuming this exceeds the required hurdle rate, BHR would realize a payout of 20% of $1.5 billion or $300 million. Private equity firms and similar financial firms like hedge funds are extremely difficult to value for asset purchase purposes due to the inherent volatility and human capital focus of key personnel. However, it would be clear that even just on management fee basis, the firm generates significant yearly revenue and would likely realize significant capital gains for partner distribution. There are additional factors that make the BHR business difficult to value both for any asset sale and business sale as a going concern. Growing? I don't know. There is effectively no open market for BHR assets or business. Given that the majority of their assets are now public projects or co-investments with major SOEs, there is effectively no open market for BHR assets. BHR cannot liquidate its assets without Beijing or local government approval, and the price is determined by the primary counter party rather than market valuation. The same holds for any valuation of BHR as a going concern. Given the SOE's direct ownership and project financing, any purchaser would be dependent on the goodwill received by the politically connected owners. Any sale of BHR assets or the business is effectively a Chinese state decision. This returns the entire partnership to the fundamental problem. Two sons of the Vice President and the United States and Secretary of State willingly entered into financial partnership with a government their fathers were supposed to deal with in an impartial manner. Evidence indicates that Secretary of State was directly or indirectly financially invested in his son's firms and benefited from asset purchases made by firms directly linked to his son. Hunter invested in a firm that, by his own words, had almost nothing to do with, managed by state government with departments dedicated to elite capture, focusing on state enterprise deals in a foreign country, but has grown to manage $6.5 billion in assets and likely realize yearly revenue of $100 to $150 million. The ultimate sale price for his stake or the partnership would be whatever the Chinese Communist Party decides his partnership stake should be, or is worth. 2016 BHR deals. In the 30% stake in BHR held by Rosemont Seneca Thornton was split into two separate holdings. The new holdings of the U.S. partners are now split between Rosemont Seneca Bohai LLC and Thornton Group LLC. On September 15th, BHR and AVIC Auto acquired U.S. automotive supplier Henniges, Henniges Automotive, with a 49% share and 51% share, respectively, according to a press release. AVIC Auto, which is described in the press release as BHR's joint venture partner, is a subsidiary of AVIC. Henniges described the deal as one of the largest acquisitions by a Chinese company of a U.S.-based automotive manufacturing company in history. 2016, on September 8, China Molybdenum, MOLYDENUM, entered into an agreement with Freeport-McMoRan to purchase 56% of a holding company with ownership of an operational mine in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, with BHR purchasing an additional 24%. China Moly and BHR act in concert, with China Moly acting as the managing partner, bringing their stake in the mine to 80%. China Moly MOLY, agreed to purchase the Tengke, Tengke, Fungurumi, Fungurume, cobalt and copper mine from Freeport McMoran in 2016, with BHR acting as co-investor. China Moly purchased 56%, with BHR purchasing an additional 24%. Despite the appearances of an international free market arm's length transaction, this is effectively a state-backed investment. The major shareholder in China Moly is a beneficial owner for the State-Owned Asset Supervision and Administration Commission of the State Council of China, SASAC. This follows the pattern the BHR... My goodness, hold on. All right. Sorry about that. This follows the pattern the BHR is created with central SOE involvement and partners with state-owned or linked entities. There are few unique facets of this specific investment. China Moly, MOLY, effectively guaranteed the investment for BHR engaging in uniquely non-market behavior. The deal between China Moly and BHR was a complicated... Grab 3. All right, come on. Moly, a call option, and BHR, a put option. This effectively guaranteed a specified rate of return to BHR. Adding to this, China Moly guaranteed a loan up to $700 million received by BHR from China Construction Bank. The agreement goes even further to compensate BHR investors if BHR cannot raise the required capital for investment, even with China Moly assets guaranteeing the transaction, compensating BHR for losses it suffers as a result. Given the China Moly guaranteed rate of return to BHR and the guarantee of capital for BHR to fund its share of the investment, this cannot be considered a market-based transaction. BHR provided no value to the transaction, and the special purpose vehicle in this transaction was subsequently considered a subsidiary of China Moly in accounting records. BHR eventually secured investors for their share of capital. The specific investors brought in by BHR, however, are also notable. 2 of the specific investors were linked to Chinese state-owned funds investing in Africa. Another investor, Design Time Limited, remains an unknown entity beyond its name due to incorporating in a jurisdiction with the company known for protecting the anonymity of high-powered Chinese individuals and institutions. It is possible to say, however, based upon their other holdings, that Design Time is a very powerful entity in their own right. Whoever owns them, Design Time is listed as an equal owner to Chinese Construction Bank in companies owned by the centrally owned Central Huijin, Huijin investment. Central Huijin is the domestically focused subsidiary of the China Investment Corporation, owned and overseen by the Ministry of Finance. Whoever owns Design Time Limited is without question a major politically and financially important institution or individual. The final company, named as CNBC Hong Kong Investment Limited, does not actually appear anywhere in Hong Kong's corporate records. China Moly purchased the outstanding 24% from BHR less than 2 years after entering into this partnership. The 2-year timeline is notable because in the bank loan agreement BHR reached with China Construction Bank, the China Mali (MOLI) guarantee only extended 2 years. Since this time, China Mali has declared the Tengke, Tengke, and then Fungurumi, Fungurume, mine unprofitable at current prices and began sliding when they entered into the 2019 purchase agreement and have continued since. Based upon existing evidence, BHR involvement seems less about value creation and generating investment returns for preferred individuals. 2015, Hunter's third China deal, the Sino-Ocean. 2015. In 2015, Rosemont Realty was acquired by Gemini Investments, which is wholly owned by Hong Kong-listed PRC real estate developer Sino-Ocean. Rosemont Realty were promised USD $3 billion as part of the deal for its U.S. commercial property portfolio. Notably, Kerry, through family trusts, was likely either directly or indirectly invested in Rosemont Realty. In other words, the Chinese government purchased a business from a relative of the Secretary of State in which they were likely invested, while also being the major financier for the vice president's son via BHR. A representative of Gemini Rosemont issued this statement in 2019. Hunter Biden had a brief relationship with Rosemont Realty and was on its advisory board from 2010 to 2014. Gemini Rosemont was formed after that relationship with Hunter Biden ended, and Gemini Rosemont has never had a relationship with Hunter Biden. We do not know about his affiliations with our companies other than what we read in the news. Clearly, Hunter's top-level Chinese connections, in particular with China Life, my dog's sneezing, Lavo, has never had a relationship with Hunter Biden. We do not know about his affiliations. We read in the news. Clearly, Hunter's top-level Chinese connections, in particular with China Life, the largest owned of Sino-Ocean and its subsidiary Gemini, would have helped seal the deal, even though he quit before it was announced. 2012 Archer's China deal, the Sichuan Chemical. In October 29th, Thornton's Lin visited local financial officials in Xinjiang, meeting with executives from Sichuan Chemical for the second time. 1 week prior to October 22nd, a press release announced that Sichuan Chemical had signed a USD $2 billion 10-year agreement to purchase 500,000 metric tons of potash annually from Prospect Global Resources Inc., Prospect Global, NASDAQ PGRX, equivalent to 25% of the projected output. Archer was a Prospect Global director and the lead negotiator of the deal. He commented that today's agreement is the product of 6 months of negotiation and due diligence carried out in China and the United States. That process has resulted in a high level of trust and respect on the part of both parties. As we look forward to a long relationship with Sichuan Chemical, we are proud of the role that Prospect Global can play in helping to bring food security to China while meaningfully impacting the U.S.-China trade balance over the next decade. In its SEC filings, Prospect Global noted that the deal was subject to final approval by the Sichuan provincial government and affiliates, confirming that it was a deal between Archer's company and the Sichuan government. Archer was only on the board of directors from March 2012 to November 2012, according to SEC filings, but received compensation worth approximately $3 million. The deal with Sichuan Chemical appears to be Prospect Global's only announced deal. The company was delisted from NASDAQ on July 10, 2014, and its website is no longer live. This implies that Archer and Prospect Global began negotiations with Sichuan Chemical a few months after Biden's visit to Sichuan, while at the same time, Lin was meeting with Sichuan Chemical executives. It is unlikely that all parties, including Biden, were unaware of the others' actions, particularly when the deal was billed in the press release as one of the largest potash export contracts in U.S. history. Around April, Archer had a private meeting with Biden at the White House into the late night, according to the White House records. A photo taken in August 2014 showed Biden playing golf with Hunter and Archer. It is unlikely that Biden, as U.S. vice president, was unaware of his son's business dealings with China's elite at this point in time, and clearly he knew Archer well, who closed the Sichuan Chemical deal a year after Biden's visit there. 2019. Biden denies knowledge of Hunter's China deals. 2019, on May 2nd, that's my puppy having an inverted sneeze. Sounds crazy. All right. On May 2nd, this 2019, Biden remarked, "They can't figure out how they're going to deal with the corruption that exists within the system. I mean, they're not bad folks, but guess what? They're not competition for us." On May 3rd, it was reported that BHR invested in Face++, a Chinese surveillance company which develops facial recognition software for law enforcement in China, including targeted ethnic minority Muslims in Xinjiang. In September 2019, Biden said this of Hunter's business deals: "I have never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings." All right. How Biden was compromised by the CPC. Biden family compromise. Biden first visited China at the age of 36 as part of a U.S. government delegation when he was the senator for Delaware, 1973 to 2009. He spent several days with Deng, D-E-N-G, Xiaoping, Xiaping, Deng, China's newly appointed paramount leader, who set the country on a path of reform and opening up. Foreign relations were later to become an important facet of Biden's career, when in 1997 he became a ranking member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, SFRC, which is a standing committee of the U.S. Senate that leads foreign policy, legislation, and debate in the Senate. The SFRC oversees the funding of foreign aid programs, arms sales to national allies, international treaty negotiations, and diplomatic nominations. From the perspective of a foreign competitor or adversary, the SFRC is a critical U.S. government department that can have a disproportionate effect on its development and position in geopolitics. Any SFRC member would be valuable as an intelligence asset or for swinging policy favorably to a foreign country. Okay, I'm back. I had to pause. Here we go again. From the perspective of a foreign competitor or adversary, the SFRC is a critical U.S. government department that can have a disproportionate effect on its development and position in geopolitics. Any SFRC member would be valuable as an intelligence asset or for swinging policy favorably to a foreign country. Biden's membership came at a critical time for China when it's applied to join the World Trade Organization, WTO. Membership would enable China to trade more freely with the rest of the world to boost its economic development. It would also enable China's wealthy politicians and politically connected elite to prosper and profit from the trade boom, money which they would later want to invest overseas. During China's application, Biden, as did many other U.S. politicians at the time, supported free trade legislation that helped China gain the WTO. In 2001, when China was admitted, Biden became SFRC chairman, now holding a position at significant global influence in which he should strive to act in the U.S. national interest. At a minimum, the SFRC chairman should be free of foreign interference. In his early days as SFRC chairman, Biden was described as a policy hawk. Prior to China joining the WTO, he argued that, quote, if China continues to behave as a rogue elephant on weapons proliferation, we should be prepared to retaliate with a clear and unequivocal message denying China most favored nation trade status, end quote. During the Clinton presidency, the scandal on Chinese access for donations was termed serious stuff and should be reviewed for any correlation of quid pro quo. In August 2001, Biden visited China for state-level talks with the CPC chairman Xing Zemin, Z-E-M-I-N, where Biden was tough on China on issues such as weapons proliferation, its judicial system, and human rights record. But as the 2000s progressed, Biden became gradually more accommodating of China's rise. In 2004, he was pictured meeting the Chinese ambassador to the U.S. at the time, Yang. Many other U.S. politicians were also supportive of free trade with China, primarily because U.S. companies wanted access to the 1 billion plus consumer market. As history shows, China failed to wholly open up its domestic market to foreign companies. In some sectors, generally the profitable ones, access was limited, forcing other countries to seek international remediation. That China failed to deliver was not necessarily a U.S. policy or Biden policy failure, but Biden's approach has differed somewhat with other senior U.S. politicians at the time. As the Chinese economy developed rapidly in the 2000s and it threatened U.S. hegemony in the Asia-Pacific region, Biden became increasingly supportive of China's supposed benign and peaceful rise. Not only that, but his son Hunter forged close business ties with the CPC and received money or other benefits from the Chinese state. In 2006, who trained as a lawyer at Yale, ran his own Washington lobby firm, Oldaker, Oldaker, Biden and Blair, which he co-founded in 2002 with William Oldaker, Oldaker, Biden's former campaign treasurer for Congress. In mid-2006, Hunter, along with Biden's brother James Biden, acquired the hedge fund Paradigm Global Advisors, Paradigm, a few months before Biden was to become SFRC chairman again and launch a presidential bid. According to an unnamed executive quoted in Politico, James made it clear that he viewed Paradigm as a way to take money from rich foreigners who could not legally give money to Biden's campaign account. We've got investors lined up in a line of 747s. Started a storm. 747s filled with cash ready to invest in this company, end quote, as well as telling Paradigm employees not to worry about investors. We've got people all around the world who want to invest in Joe Biden. James and Hunter denied to the press that James made these comments. Our research indicates the Biden family and associates went to execute a string of business deals with China and the CPC for nearly a decade. Kaiden, please be quiet. Question: Has the Biden family been compromised by the CPC? Answer: yes. This investigation details the likely way in which the Biden family was compromised. The approach. At a political level, China's route was through Yang. According to Source A senior finance professional in China who not only was Biden's diplomatic counterpart on state-level matters, but communicates with Hunter directly. At a business level, China's route in was via Lin, a Taiwanese national who graduated from Yale in 1991, worked in the 1990s in U.S. financial institutions, and then moved to China, where he worked for politically connected SOE founder group in Beijing, together with James Bulger, and the son of long-term Massachusetts Senator William Bulger, and a nephew of organized crime boss James Bulger, Whitey Bulger. They founded Thornton Group LLC in 2007, which acted as a government relations consultancy for the United States and China. From its inception, Thornton has had a close relationship with the State Legislative Leaders Foundation, a nonprofit, nonpartisan, independent NGO for the leaders of the American state legislature, whose president is Steve Lakis, Lakis. In October 2007, Lin invited Lakis and other SLLF representatives to visit Beijing, where they met with Chinese government leaders to discuss the... Here, come lay with me. This is Labao. Okay, baby. All right. Another SLLF representative to visit Beijing, where they met with Chinese government leaders to discuss the U.S.-China trade relationship at a time when the U.S. government announced further anti-subsidy sanctions against China. In a write-up published in Chinese media and translated onto the Thornton website on October 11, 2007, Lakis is quoted as saying that the anti-subsidy policies were driven by Congress, not federal government, adding, "I believe that the Chinese people's understanding of America is much deeper than that Americans have on China." Thornton's and SLLF's goal was to hold a summit conference in Beijing in 2008 or 2009, which will invite more than 30 legislative leaders and business leaders from all states to come to China and communicate with representatives of the Chinese government, and to promote each state's Congress's understanding towards Chinese culture and economy. The same article said Thornton planned to invest in waste power plants in China and set up an investment fund on green energy and infrastructure in order to attract companies and overseas capital to invest in China's green policy, green energy and infrastructure market. There are no indications that any Thornton-invested waste power plants were built. The event was further covered by Chinese media, but not overseas media, when a month later, on November 14th, the CPC's official English newspaper, the China Daily, said U.S.-based strategic investment and advisory company Thornton would invest between $450 million and $900 million to build several waste power plants in China over the next 6 months. According to Thornton CEO Michael C. Lin. But specifics were left out in the vague quote from Lin, who said, "We have made a verbal agreement with a Chinese company which is quite famous in the IT industry on the first deal, but I cannot reveal its name until the official agreement is signed. According to the deal, the Chinese partner would provide the local documents needed to operate incineration power plants, while Thornton would provide funding and management experience. Lin said 35% of the investment would come from Thornton's own funds and the rest from loans. There is no independent evidence to suggest this deal existed or materialized." The China Daily article continued that Thornton was jointly funded by an investment company, Thornton Group, and biomass power generation company, Coletta Renewable Energy Company, or Corporation, I don't know, Coletta RE, and that Thornton was established 20 years ago and launched its Asia operations in 2000. Its entry into China was to develop infrastructure, and last year it built roads in northwest China's Qinghai province. There are no signs Thornton built roads in Qinghai province. Similarly, another China Daily article on August 10th made similar boasts regarding Thornton, that it was established in the United States in the 1990s and arrived in Asia in 2000. What is noticeable about this press coverage is that such a relatively unknown company with no known track record or independently confirmed history of operations is receiving coverage in the China Daily, boosting credibility. All right. The straw man. Research shows Coletta RE was incorporated in 2005 and Thornton was incorporated in 2007 in the United States. Furthermore, in 2004, Lin was reported in the Chinese press as the CEO of little-known Taiwan Jinding Securities Group, Greater China Investment Bank. This bank only appears in press reports when mentioned with Lin. His LinkedIn profile says he has 25 years cross-border M&A experience working as senior manager at JP Morgan, American Express, ING Baring, and Deutsche Bank Securities across Boston, New York, Hong Kong, Beijing, and Taipei. And he has visited more than 1,000 companies and worked with a variety of governmental agencies to float Asian companies on the China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and U.S. stock exchanges. There are no references to specific deals Lin has worked on, or independent evidence suggests he has held senior positions in foreign banks. Yet, the only references to Lin are in Chinese media and in connection with the small companies he has set up. Lin is always quoted as promoting investment or trade with China. Lin's biography only appears on websites where users can self-publish their details and where he puts his nationality and birthplace as China. He also published a 2001 book in Taiwan titled Investment in China after its entry into the WTO. Likewise, Thornton exists on its website in the China Daily on Chinese Wikipedia style websites. Our local government meeting records mentioned here, along with the China Council for the Promotion of International Trade, Chinese media, and none of Thornton's deals appear to have been completed, save for the BHR partnership. A similar pattern of deal announcements and no-end projects is generally the hallmark of fraud operations or front companies. In the case of Lin and Thornton, it appears the only real activity they are engaged in is co-opting U.S. politicians and promoting Chinese culture. Their only visible achievement has been to partner Hunter with Chinese state money. All right. Source B and Source C from two separate national intelligence agencies have confirmed that Lin is a person of interest for his work on behalf of China. NB if this assessment is inaccurate, Lin, Bolger, and Thornton can publicly disclose evidence to the contrary. The intro. In January 2007, Biden was re-elected as SFRC chairman and announced his second bid for the presidency. Thornton's October 2007 meeting in China, its first meeting in China, according to its website, was with China's highest organ of state power, the National People's Congress. On October 11th, Lin arranged for the SLLF to meet with the National People's Congress Vice Chairman Zhu Jinlu, so XU, JIALU, Zhu, and Wei Xin, WEIXIN, Wei, Chairman and CPC Secretary of Founder Group, where Lin worked during the early 2000s as their head of international investment. Founders is an SOE part owned by Peking University and allegedly backed by He Guoqiang, so HE and then GUOQIANG. At the time, head of the powerful Central Commission for Discipline, Inspection, and Politburo Standing Committee member. It is remarkable and unclear how Thornton, with no track record in China, was able to arrange meetings with such a senior Chinese politician. A more usual approach in China would be to meet with lower-ranking politicians and working up. The link Thornton wishes to present is Lin, founder, PKU, NPC. If this were the true link leveraging Lin's personal network, the meetings would have been in private and unpublicized. The fact that senior Chinese politicians were present in the Chinese government and the Chinese government wished to disclose the meetings points to them in instigating the meeting, not the other way around. It was a relationship they wished publicized. Following the trip, Lakis, Lakis, published a letter in winter 2007 to which he praised his Chinese counterparts and spoke of bringing our peoples together. People-to-people diplomacy is a narrative commonly used in Chinese foreign influence operations. I have just returned from Beijing, China, where a delegation of state legislative leaders and I had the good fortune to meet with prominent Chinese political and business leaders. It is abundantly clear we Americans need to learn more about China, its culture, politics, and more importantly, the aspirations of its people. I see fine opportunities here to inform and educate not just U.S. state legislative leaders and business leaders, but equally our Chinese counterparts. I am proud SLLF will be playing a role in bringing our peoples together, and I have no doubt that through our future programs, the Chinese will come to admire and respect Americans just as we will come to recognize how much common ground we share with these noble people. It is unclear if Lakis has been co-opted by Lin and the Chinese or if he deliberately works with them. The benefits he receives, if any, are unknown, and his name does not feature in the subsequent deals between China and Hunter. Lakis' 2007 letter and other Thornton-related items are not published on the SLLF website and it is unclear from archived images that they ever were. The following year, in 2008, as Obama and Biden began their ascent to the highest levels of office in the U.S. government, Lin and other Thornton representatives continued to be feted by China's elite. Shortly after Biden was named Obama's running mate in August, Hunter founded Seneca Global Advisors, and the Beijing government approved the incorporation of Thornton Beijing Soulbury Thornton in Beijing Consulting Company Limited. On October 21st, Lin, Luckys, and Archer visited HNA Group, HNA, in Beijing. This time with Archer acting as COO of Rosemont Soulbury Capital, and had dinner with Chen. On the same day, the Thornton delegation also met with officials from PKU. HNA was originally an airline carrier that expanded rapidly into a major Chinese conglomerate, is widely regarded as backed by or ultimately owned by Wang Qishan. Wang, then former vice premier, 2008 to 2013. Source D, an experienced Shanghai finance professional with PLA links, confirmed Wang controls HNA. Wang himself, a well-connected priceling, is currently China's vice president and close aide of Xi. HNA has allegedly used various methods to bribe targets in the past, including hosting parties and supplying targets with young women. It is unknown if Thornton representatives were targeted in this manner at Chen's dinner, but if any nighttime entertainment was provided, it was probably recorded by HNA Chinese intelligence, as is commonplace in China. They record everything, guys. All right, the following day, a Thornton Rosemont Soulbury SLLF delegation, including Lin, Archer, and Luckys, met with Peng Fang, P-E-N-G, P-E-N-G-F-A-N-G, Director General of the NPC's Foreign Affairs Committee, which is responsible for communicating with foreign affairs committees from other countries. The meeting was held in the Great Hall of the People, China's most prestigious state building, used to host legislative and ceremonial activities. In other words, the Thornton delegation met with a senior Chinese foreign affairs official at China's most famous state building, in a meeting which would have been approved by or informed to China's top leaders. This was clearly not a business meeting, but at least in the eyes of the Chinese contingent, rather a nation-to-nation, state-to-state meeting. Targeted by China's foreign influence organizations. In January 2009, Biden became the 47th U.S. Vice President, and Kerry replaced Biden as SFRC Chairman. With Biden and Kerry holding top U.S. policy and foreign policy related positions, their associates were targeted by China's leading foreign influence organizations, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, MOFA, is the government department responsible for the PRC's foreign relations and is administered by the State Council. United Front Work Department of the CPC's Central Committee, United Front. The United Front is the core organization used by the CPC to advance its interests with the goal of co-opting organizations that might threaten it. Foreign targets can include the overseas Chinese communities, government officials, educating institutions, and any persons deemed influential, such as Lin, Bolger, Archer, and Hunter. Chinese People's Institute of Foreign Affairs, CPIFA, subordinate to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and purpose of enhancing mutual understanding and friendship between the people of China and the world. China Association for International Friendly Contacts, CAIFC, a united front organization run by the Liaison Department of the Political Work Department of the Central Military Commission. Active in intelligence collection, the department aims to dampen foreign army morale and break them up. China Council for the Promotion of International Trade, CCPIT. The CCPIT organizes trade fairs and events, but its main objective is to persuade overseas businessmen that trade embargoes on China are detrimental to their own interests and a channel of intelligence and influence activities. These CPC agencies are either directly responsible for the CPC's foreign relations or function as proxies for CPC propaganda and seek to engineer a discourse landscape favorable to CPC policy. They do so by cultivating enough people in the right place so that the CPC can use others to change the debate. Thornton and ultimately Hunter were surrounded by CPC agencies seeking to influence U.S. foreign policy and actively supported their influence with U.S. politicians. In 2009, Lin was appointed as SLLF's Asia-China Bureau head, giving him a formal role in the organization and a suitable title for meeting with Chinese politicians. The same announcement included a photo of Lin and Lakis standing inside the Great Hall of the People. During 2009, Lin and Thornton arranged 3 further meetings and events with the CCPIT, a further meeting with the FAC, and meetings with Hangzhou, Hangzhou, government officials, home to conglomerate Wanxiang, Wanxiang. These were ostensibly about U.S. investment in local areas in China. But no deals materialized. The culmination of Thornton's efforts was the first Sino-U.S. Provincial Legislative Leaders Forum held at PKU on November 10th to November 15th. The event was co-sponsored by the SLLF, CPIFA, and CAIFC, where Zhu, XU, was a special advisor, and the General Office of the Standing Committee of the NPC, according to a report written by Xinhua, XINHUA, China's official press agency, and published on China's government website. The organizers are Chinese influence organizations working to influence elites, business, and political leaders. The goal was to discuss issues of mutual interest and expand opportunities for trade and investment. Zhu, XU, delivered the opening ceremony speech, and then director of MOFA's Department of North American and Oceanian Affairs, it is hoped that the legislative bodies of China and the United States and people of insight from all walks of life will become supporters and participants in Sino-U.S. relations. Again, the event was only covered in official Chinese media, indicating this was a Chinese-led effort, government-led effort. Biden and Hunter mixed business with politics. Between April 7th and 9th, 2010, Hunter was introduced by Lin to China's most powerful government-controlled financial institutions. The English news item is no longer accessible on Thornton's website, but the Chinese version remains. According to Thornton's news item, Hunter was introduced as the chairman of Rosemont Seneca and the second son of the U.S. Vice President, and the purpose of his visit was to deepen mutual understanding and explore the possibility of commercial cooperation. Lin had delivered Hunter to the Chinese for discussions on his payoff. 3 days later, Biden met with then Chinese President Hu Jintao, Hujintao, in Washington as part of the Nuclear Security Summit. The Secret Service protects, by statute, the President and Vice President and their families. As the son of a sitting Vice President, Hunter will have had Secret Service protection during his business trip to China. Freedom of Information Act records show that Hunter visited China from April 6 to April 9, 2010. Unusually for such a high-profile visit, there were no media reports in English or Chinese media. Therefore, his father Biden, even if unaware personally, which is unlikely given to how close to each other they live and work, will have been aware of his son's business trip to Beijing through official channels. Given the sensitive nature of U.S.-China relations, Hunter would have been closely watched by various Chinese security agencies during the trip. Makes sense? FOIA records show Hunter visited China again in April 2011. There are no media reports on the purpose of his visit. Given that on Hunter's other previous and subsequent trips to China, he always met with Chinese state financial institutions tied with BHR, this was likely the same purpose for his 2011 trip. On August 17, 2011, Biden visited China for a 5-day trip, meeting Chinese Foreign Minister Yang. Source A said that BHR and Hunter enjoy direct access to the Politburo via Yang, who is now a member and director of the Office of Foreign Affairs for the CPC. Biden held talks with Xi, then Chinese vice president. At the meeting, Biden said the U.S., quote, fully understands that Taiwan and Tibet issues are China's core interests. The U.S. will continue to resolutely pursue the One China policy, and the U.S. does not support Taiwan's independence, and the U.S. fully recognizes that Tibet is an inalienable part of the People's Republic of China, end quote. Biden's words are verbatim from China's official standpoint on Taiwan and Tibet. Biden has spent more time in private meetings with Xi than any other world leader, including 25 hours of private dinners with Xi and one interpreter. Biden also met with Hu at the Great Hall of the People, the same state building where the Thornton Rosemont Solberry SLLF delegation met with the Director General of the FAC in 2008. Biden said that a strong, prosperous, and successful China that plays a bigger role in global affairs is in the interests of the United States and the world at large. Biden urged the two nations to properly handle sensitive issues, boost people-to-people exchanges, economic cooperation dialogue, and consultations in regional and global affairs to rise to challenges facing the international community. Again, Biden used Chinese government speak on U.S.-China relations in stark contrast to his language used in the late 90s during the Clinton administration. 3 days later, Biden delivered a speech at Sichuan University, where he said, China's development and prosperity are in line with the interest of the United States. In comments on the university's website, the Obama White House records published a transcript of the speech during which Biden said, let me be clear. I believed in 1979 and said so, and I believe now that a rising China is a positive development not only for the people of China, but for the United States and for the world as a whole. In order to cement this robust partnership, we have to go beyond close ties between Washington and Beijing, which we're working on every day. So go beyond it to include all levels of government, go beyond it to include classrooms and laboratories, athletic fields, and boardrooms. A few months after Biden's Sichuan trip, Archer and Lin worked with a Sichuan Chemical, a large Sichuan state-owned company, to set a major potash deal that never materialized for Prospect Global, a listed U.S. company at the time that soon delisted and no longer appears to be in business. It is unclear if the purpose of this deal was to deliver Archer millions of dollars in compensation to talk up the Prospect Global stock, or if it resulted in Sichuan Chemical transferring millions of U.S. dollars to the United States, either for capital flight purposes or to be directed to U.S. politicians such as Biden and John Kerry. The setup. On February 1st, 2013, Kerry became the 68th U.S. Secretary of State, while in the same year, Biden and Hunter continued to play on their dual role of U.S. negotiator with China and businessman with China when they visited the country together in 2013. More pictures. Okay. The result was the establishment of BHR, whose shareholders included the same SOEs Hunter met with in 2010. One of these, Ji Guoqing, Jiguoqiang, head of the SSF's Equity Assets Department, later became a Tianjin Standing Committee member and its United Front minister. Lin also met with two of the key players in 2008, namely China Life Investment Holding Company Limited on March 21st, 2008, and local officials in the Tianjin Economic Technological Development Area, TEDA, in April and August of 2008. The Tianjin government is a direct equity holder in BHR, although a locally owned SOE investment firm. At the China Life meeting, Lin toasted President Song Guodong, Song for the success of their planned U.S. $0.5 billion China Infrastructure Fund. No such fund materialized. The Tianjin meetings were arranged and hosted by CCPIT and were supposedly to discuss future cooperation on a waste treatment facility in Tianjin Binhai new area. No such project materialized. Thornton Vice Chairman David Callahan expressed his heartfelt thanks to the Tianjin CCPIT and Binhai New Area for their hospitality and considerate arrangements. TEDA Investment Holdings Company Ltd. is a 22% shareholder in Bohai Capital and the Chinese partner in BHR. It can be seen that since 2008, the CCPIT had already arranged for Lin to set up Thornton representatives to meet with Tianjin government officials, whose SOE would later be a major backer of BHR. The waste management deals that never happened appear to be window dressed for the only deal to materialize, that of Hunter and BHR. While his son signed business deals with Chinese SOEs, Biden continued to meet with State Councilor Yang in 2014, commenting that they had spent a lot of time together. This is quite possible not just since Biden became vice president in 2009, but prior to that in Washington, where Yang spent a total of 10 years working in key positions in the Chinese embassy between 1983 and 2004. On September 17th, Biden met Yang once more, this time in Los Angeles, where Yang, as usual, was acting as Xi's special representative. On October 3rd, 2014, nearly 1 year after his son partnered with China's state financial institutions, Biden delivered a speech in which he had this to say on China, quote, "I don't know how long I've been hearing about how China, and I want China to succeed in our interests. They succeed economically, about how China is eating America's lunch," end quote. After spending a decade in dealing with China's top officials, his once hawkish views on China had softened. Despite the country's rising geopolitical assertiveness, one explanation would appear to be his son's business ties with the Chinese government. Lin continues to promote Chinese culture. For reasons unclear, other than to promote Chinese culture, Lin, Lakis, and the SLLF are replaying their China playbook from 10 years ago as if it were new. In September 2019, Biden said this of Hunter's business deals, quote, "I have never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings," end quote. Biden posed with Lin on the unspecified date in Biden's American Promise Tour, which began in mid-2017, indicating the former U.S. president was familiar with Lin, his operations, and Hunter's Chinese business deals. If there was any doubt about whether Biden is aware of his son's business deals with the Chinese government, the below photo makes Biden's denial all the more implausible. A similar post to Lakis's letter in 2007 trip to China was posted in 2017 to the SLLF website, where an SLLF representative wrote about their 2017 trip to China, titled "Observations from China," and it copies the same praise for China as did the Lakis letter, written in a style that suggests either simplicity or complicity on the part of the author, or it was written guided by Chinese propaganda. For example, the main points by the author are quoted below. China is a very big country with lots of people. Chinese people are very courteous. Chinese leaders are anxious to learn from us, and we from them. China remains in part a closed society. China is moving forward. The points made included praise for the CPC propaganda achievements such as China's high-speed rail and broadband network that capitalism was alive and well in the streets and in the local markets. While the author acknowledges that the economy is built around a centralized government-controlled communist model, the same author also praised China's leading surveillance technology, such as facial recognition, a sector invested in by Hunter's BHR, Face++, and used to suppress the CPC's political opponents, especially targeting ethnic minority Muslims Xinjiang. The author's constant praise for how well they were treated reveals the trip was likely paid for by the Chinese government and designed to create a positive and frankly unrealistic impression of China, which the author willingly propagated upon its return to the U.S. Quote, "Everyone we met could have not been more gracious, from the highest dignitary to the hotel staff to the wait staff. Whenever anyone noticed this country boy struggling mightily with chopsticks, a fork would magically appear. If any of our delegation were having difficulty communicating, there was always a translator nearby ready to assist." End quote. Tellingly, the author said the purpose of the trip was to open lines of communications between American state legislative leaders and Chinese provincial legislative leaders. the same line used by Thornton a decade prior. No specific discussion points or achievements for the trip were given. The SLLFs lists the Chinese People's Association for Friendship with Foreign Countries at CPAFFC is an affiliate on its website. This CPAFFC falls under the Central Committee Foreign Affairs Commission, which is headed by Yang. The CPAFFC is ostensibly a national people's organization engaged in people-to-people diplomacy, but is also considered the public face of the United Front, which seeks to cultivate ties at the state and local levels to advance the CPC's goals. Of the 39 affiliates listed on SLFF's website, the CPAFFC is the only foreign affiliate, highlighting the unusually close ties between the SLLF and China. Recommend the further investigation of the SLLF. In 2018, Lin promoted his new investment business, Michelangelo Investment Holdings Ltd., Michelangelo, which offers the same services as Thornton, namely cross-border financing and investment in M&A, but with a focus on investment in Chinese media and film. Lin still represents Thornton, sometimes at the same time as representing Michelangelo, and sometimes with Bolger still. The main theme underpinning their events is promoting Chinese culture. On January 29th, Lin and Lakis delivered speeches with Bolger in attendance at a ceremony sponsored by the Tianjin government, which effectively finances Hunter's BHR partnership. The Tianjin government launched a new brand blending film culture, public culture, and traditional culture to cultivate the national spirit and promote social development. Again, the China Daily reported on the event under the headline, Michelangelo devoted to spreading Chinese traditional culture. After a decade in dealing with China's elites, it is unclear why Lin, Bolger, and Lakis feel obligated to attend such events or what the benefit is for Thornton. The benefits for China and CPC are obvious. On April 24th, Lin and Bolger attended the China Internet Film Television Annual Conference, with Lin delivering a keynote speech. The event was attended by Lin Xinjiang, Xian, member of the Standing Committee of Tianjin, CPPCC, sat to the left of Bolger, and Yang Xiaodong, president of the CCPIT's China International Economic Cooperation and Investment Incorporated, on the next seat to the left. On May 21st, Michelangelo underwent rigorous review and formally joined the SLLF's advisory group. In other words, Lin and Bolger established a new company and re-entered the SLLF. Michelangelo is currently not listed on the SLLF Advisory Council, which is comprised of major U.S. companies. On November 29th, Lin and Bolger attended the third China-U.S. Subnational Legislatures Cooperation Forum, held in Las Vegas, this time representing Michelangelo, and with Bolger holding the title of SLLF's Asia Head, previously held by Lin. The event was co-hosted by SLLF's and the CPAFFC. The event was attended by Chinese Embassy and the U.S. Minister Counselor Yin Chengwu Yin, who read a congratulatory message from Chinese ambassador to the U.S. Kui Tiankai Yin said the China-U.S. subnational legislatures cooperation forum was the outcome of Xi's U.S. troop in 2015. CPA FFC president at the time, Li Xiaolin, daughter of a former China president, was also in attendance, and Consul General Wang Donghua from China's San Francisco consulate, which is known as Chinese Spy Hub in the U.S. Interesting. All right, down. For reasons unclear, Lin and Lakis rebranded the U.S. Provincial Legislative Leaders Forum as a China-U.S. Subnational Legislatures Cooperation Forum. The lack of English media coverage, it was covered by China's Foreign Influence Organization and state media, combined with the attendance of senior Chinese diplomats at the behest of Xi, suggests this event was organized by the Chinese government and is aimed at co-opting U.S. state-level governmental officials, presumably to outflank the more powerful U.S. government. Also, the obscure locations, not in political cities, but far away in Hawaii or Las Vegas, and event photos show a low-budget affair, not in keeping with high-level state-to-state event. On January 31st, 2020, the Biden Center arranged the Penn China Research Symposium, where current Chinese ambassador to the U.S., Huang Ping, delivered the opening remarks. On August 8th, the top foreign policy advisor of China's ruling Communist Party, Yang, said China has no interest in meddling in U.S. domestic politics. All right, I'm going to pause real quick. Actually, I'm going to stop here and then I will post a secondary video. I'm only halfway through this article, believe it or not. So hang tight, come back and look for part 2.